Hello and good morning, all of you. We are discussing this course, British Poetry, and we are on Unit 6. In Unit 6, we are now in the end, and in today's class, we will be taking up the supernatural machinery element from this poem, Rape of the Lock. Friends, we have discussed in detail about this text and the excellence of Alexander Pope. As a writer, nobody can match him in his age. As a poet, he has mastery over writing mock epic and heroic couplets. And one of the elements of epic writing or epic convention is supernatural machinery. And in today's 30 minutes lecture, we will be discussing about this element of supernatural machinery used in this mock epic Rape of the Lock. But before moving towards the discussion, the lecture outcome, what are you going to learn from this 30 minutes lecture? Friends, you would be able to justify the function of supernatural machinery in the mock epic. So, let us now try to understand that how the supernatural machinery works as a function in the mock epic. How it moves ahead, let's say, as a major element in proceeding the actions in the story. What is the role of supernatural machinery? What is the use of introducing supernatural machinery in a mock epic? We are going to discuss all these, let's say, aspects in detail in today's lecture. The first version of the Rape of the Lock was made up of only 4 cantos. Cantos means parts. You can also call them as 4 parts, containing the main incidents of the game of cards, cutting of the lock, and ensuing battle therewith. So, when Pope first wrote this poem, the poem was only in 4 cantos. It talked about the game of cards, as I told you, that boys and girls, they play the game of Omber, and it is presented as a real battle by Alexander Pope. Then it included the cutting of the lock scene, where Baron cuts the lock of hair from Belinda. And then there is the incident which ensuing battle, talking about the battle between Belinda and Baron, where they use sniff and pins for battle and considering them as a very, let's say, dangerous weapons. This humorous piece was meant to bring about a happy reconciliation between the families of the farmers and Petres. Pope saw the possibility of expanding it into a mock heroic poem. Friends, when we discussed about the background, the story behind the story of this book, Rape of the Lock, we saw that the family of farmers and Petres were the aristocrat families. And the society about which we are talking here, was the society which was feudalistic. There were feudal lords, people belonging to the royal blood, royal families, extremely, let's say, rich and living a very artificial and luxurious life. And their, let's say, lifestyle is discussed in detail in this poem, mock heroic rape of the lock. This was done by including into the body of the poem the supernatural creatures like the sylphs and gnomes, who seem to be the guiding force behind the central action of the poem. Friends, Pope has introduced two kinds of creatures in the poem. One are sylphs and the other one are gnomes. Obviously, these terms are not created by Alexander Pope, but they already existed as a supernatural creatures and mentioned in the earlier literary works also, since the Elizabethan age, the time of Shakespeare, and even few years before that. Now, let us talk about the source of Pope's machinery. What was the source from where Pope has taken these supernatural machineries or these names like sylphs and gnomes, etc.? Friends, when Pope used these supernatural machineries, we can understand that he was a well-read person and he has read the major literary works of the prior centuries to his age, and he is well aware of the literary canons of the earlier ages, including 16th, 17th and 18th century. Pope took the name of Ariel from Shakespeare's The Tempest. Friends, all of you know that The Tempest is a play written by William Shakespeare in the Elizabethan age, 16th century, and the supernatural machinery named Ariel was given by Shakespeare first, and Pope has taken this, let's say, supernatural creature from that text. And the idea of the sylphs from the French book La Comtes de Gabalis, which gives an account of the Rosicrucian mythology of the spirit. So friends, we can see that Pope was not only, let's say, aware about the English literature, but also French literature, which is why he has taken the concept of sylphs from a French book named here, suggesting the Rosicrucian mythology of spirits. According to this mythology, the four elements are inhabited by spirits, which are called sylphs, created from air, gnomes created from earth, nymphs created from water, and salamanders created from fire. So friends, these terms already existed in literature, and these, let's say, mythological creatures, these four elements of spirits are created through four parts of the, let's say, of this atmosphere: air, earth, water and fire. Two of these kinds, sylphs and gnomes, are introduced by Pope in Rape of the Lock. So friends, when we talk about, let's say, sylphs and gnomes, which are taken by Alexander Pope in this book Rape of the Lock, he is giving more priority to the, let's say, the air part and the earth part into this book Rape of the Lock. These aerial spirits of Rosicrucian mythology were tiny, light beings which would exactly suit his mock heroic poem, and these are as artificial as the society depicted in the poem. Friends, when we talk about, let's say, these spirits, aerial spirits, as we had seen that their reference is taken from Rosicrucian mythology, we can understand that they were tiny little beings, not very giantly creatures. But they exactly suit a mock heroic poem because they are artificial, and the artificial society of these supernatural creatures is also one of the major satires or satirical themes of Pope in the poem. In this poem, Rape of the Lock, Pope is not only satirizing the real world, the English society, but he is also satirizing the supernatural world by the activities of these supernatural creatures. Let us now move to the next aspect in supernatural machinery, that is how this machinery functions. These sylphs and gnomes, etc., how they function in the poem Rape of the Lock. Ariel, who guards Belinda, assigns different functions to the spirits under his control. Friends, we see in the story that Ariel is the leader of these supernatural creatures. Others are inferior to Ariel. They had an army, and Ariel is the superior most, just like the king or the guard of Belinda and the main king of these supernatural creatures. Ariel's work is to assign different duties, and these, let's say, below ranked sylphs, etc., they report directly to Ariel about the order, whether they have followed the order or not. One was given the charge of Belinda's fan. Another was to take care of her earrings. The third was to look after her watch. And the fourth was to guard her favorite lock. Friends, you can see that very trivial, very, let's say, minor works are given to these supernatural creatures. Overall, they had to maintain the outer beauty of Belinda. One is taking care of the fan of Belinda. Other one is assigned a duty to take care of the earrings. They must not lose their position. The third supernatural creature is given the work to look after the watch of Belinda, and the fourth one to guard the favorite lock of Belinda. So, and their works are also, friends, very, let's say, minor. Take for example, the sylph who is taking care of the lock of Belinda. Her duty is that the hair of Belinda must not spread here and there. They should look organized, they should look beautiful. So this is something which suggests that Belinda herself is insufficient of maintaining her outer appearance, and she needs these sylphs or Ariel to maintain her beauty. Ariel warned the pygmy band of spirits against the negligence of their duties. Severe punishment was to be awarded to those who failed in the discharge of their duties. Friends, in this world of, let's say, Ariel, where Ariel is the leader, Ariel warns, let's say, the pygmy band of spirits, these, let's say, creatures, that if in case of negligence of duties, these, let's say, people will be given severe punishments. Let us talk about those punishments. You may think that those punishments might be very, let's say, brutal, but you will feel, let's say, surprised. You may feel, let's say, ironic when you read about these punishments. The punishments with which the delinquents were threatened were, and here is a list of punishments. First one, to be shut up in small bottles. So, these spirits will be taken, they will be put into a bottle, and the bottle will be locked. The second is to be pierced through with pins. So, just like the human beings are pierced in their ears to wear earrings, in the same way the, let's say, any body part of these, let's say, sylphs will be pierced through pins. The third punishment is to be held fast in the eye of a bodkin. So, they have to, let's say, face fastly the eye of the bodkin in the third punishment. And the fourth one, or to be stuck up in gums and pomades. The fourth one is they will be tied in gums and pomades where they cannot move. The movement is restricted. So, when we talk about these all four punishments, we see that the punishments are also trivial, just like these delicate and soft creatures. In spite of all the careful vigilance of Ariel and the sylphs, the lock of Belinda's hair is raped. The spirits do not in the least influence the action. Even then, before the fatal engines closed, the wretched sylph fondly interposed. Fate urged the shears and cut the sylph in twain. So, in this scene we see that there was a sylph who was taking care of the hair of Belinda. And she was so serious about her work that when Baron took a scissor and cut the lock of hair, the body of that sylph also cut into two pieces, because she stayed with the lock. And with the cutting of the lock, the body of sylph also divided into two parts. So, suggesting that that sylph has sacrificed her life for saving the hair of Belinda. All the epic poets like Homer, Virgil, Tasso and Milton made use of machinery, and it was in the fitness of things that Pope should also parody it in his mock epic. Friends, when we talk about, let's say, the genealogy of epic poetry, we come to the writers like Homer, Virgil, Tasso, Milton, etc. We have read Milton in our syllabus also, his epic Paradise Lost. So, when you compare the Milton's style of writing with this mock epic, Rape of the Lock, you see that this poem, Rape of the Lock, is a parody of the mock epic. It is mocking at the, let's say, the epic convention. Edison, Pope's companion, advised him not to add supernatural machinery in the mock epic, but Pope ignored his suggestions. So, friends, when Pope was writing this poem, there was a person, another famous writer, Edison, who suggested Pope not to introduce supernatural creatures in this poem, but Pope ignored his suggestion. A critic, John Dennis, is not impressed by the use of supernatural elements in this poem. According to him, these elements are far beyond Christian beliefs and do not leave an absurd impression in the mind of the sensible reader. Friends, we have the critic John Dennis, who says that introducing these supernatural elements is against Christian beliefs. Christianity is not a hypothetical religion. Christianity believes in realism and real human values. Christianity believes in sympathy, faith, and human suffering. But when Pope uses these supernatural creatures, he is moving far away from Christian beliefs, which makes this poem as completely artificial. Despite these negative criticism, Pope uses the aerial machinery was essential to create a mock epic effect. Friends, why Pope has used, let's say, supernatural creatures? Because this was the need of mock epic effect. The mockery or the irony or the satire which Pope wanted to create in this poem was completely, let's say, memorable, and Pope had made it memorable by introducing aerial machinery or these supernatural creatures in this poem, Rape of the Lock. It not only mimics the epic grandeur of Milton and Homer, but also provides some moments of a silent laughter for a modern reader. Friends, when we read this poem, because Rape of the Lock was published in the 18th century, it is almost 400 years. But even now, when we read the poem and read the job of these supernatural creatures, the machinery, and how much vulnerable they are, but pretending to save the life of Belinda and working as a guardian angels of Belinda, we feel laughter. We feel surprised on the writing style and the wit and humor of Alexander Pope. And we still, let's say, enjoy reading this poem, Rape of the Lock, just because of these, let's say, different elements introduced by Alexander Pope in this poem. Whether it is, let's say, heroic couplet or satire or mock heroic conventions or supernatural machinery. With this, I end this poem, Rape of the Lock. I hope that you have understood all the major aspects we have discussed about social satire, definition of social satire, mock epic, or let's say the heroic couplet, epic conventions, Pope's style of writing, or the plot of Rape of the Lock. Friends, also, although this is a poem, but in much detail Pope has written it, that it can be extended up to a novel. Pope is a so minute observer of his society that we cannot deny that Pope was considered as the, let's say, major writer of his age. There is one more, let's say, link which I had shared, and I hope that like you have, let's say, looked at the links which I shared in the earlier PPTs, you will also look at this link in which you will find the complete annotation of the poem, line by line analysis, word by word analysis of the poem, to get a comprehensive idea of what this poem is about. I hope that you will go to this link and understand the poem and the language of Alexander Pope. That is all for today. Thank you for listening.